Tonight the sky above reminds me of your love. Walking through winter time and the stars are shining.
What's going on, guys? 420 Gaming here, and welcome back to a Kerbal Space Program Enhanced Edition tutorial. So today we're going to get up into orbit. So we're just building a quick craft to do that. We're also going to make it a lander so that we can go to the moon after in the second part to this. So we put a heat shield on to the capsule there, and then we just threw on the decoupler. Now we're going to go for a fuel tank up here on the top left. So we want to grab one of these white fuel tanks here, the medium-sized one, and throw that on, and then we're going to go stick an engine on here. So you want to throw that exact engine on, and then we're going to go for some ladders here so that we can get down onto the surface. Although the moon's pretty good, you could use your RCS pack on your back. Get around pretty good that way. So you're going to need two ladders because once we put the legs on, we're going to want to be able to get down to the bottom, or get down to the ground, and you'll see that there's some space there. So we're going to open up this ladder real quick. It was giving me a little bit of trouble, and then we'll go for the legs. These are the biggest, heaviest legs, and then we'll just do the 4 symmetry there, and as you can see, that's enough. It'll go right to the ground once those are out. So we're going to retract these ladders. We retracted the legs just so that it's all nice and clean, and we're going to go for a parachute for the top here, and we decided we're going to use a different one. I think that was just aesthetical. I was just trying to look for a different color than the blue, because we already have like an orange on there. So here we're putting on the parachutes. I don't like to put anything in front of the door, so I'm really careful. Here you'll also see me kind of struggle to make sure that there's nothing in the window. And then I'm thinking, okay, that's a little too low. It's on top of the heat shield there, and it might get thrown off with it. So alright, we're going to move those up, and we're going to move on here to the electricity. So we're going to throw some batteries down. I realize my legs are a little crooked here, so I correct with the batteries, and then I try to get the legs back in the same spot, but I have the symmetry all messed up. So we get it here in a second. Then I think we're going to go for some solar panels, and we realize these are a little too tall. We're going to screw around with them for a little while here. If you haven't noticed already, this is commentary voiceover. It's a lot easier to do this way, just because the audio comes out a little better. Hopefully the audio is good, man. I've heard a lot of people bitch. You know, I've had some comments saying that I should get a new mic and stuff. And I should. I really, if I could afford it, I would. But I just want to make these videos to try and help if I can, so that's why I'm doing it. So we got some solar panels on there. We just decided to go with a different kind. So we're going to get another decoupler, and now we're going for the payload here. I keep passing it, but we're going to do an airstream. So you want to grab the biggest one, and we're just going to cover that up nice and straight here. And we're going to give it a good angle so that we are not too wind resistant, just so we can be aerodynamic. So just screwing around with that. Alright, so we're going to build our transfer stage now, and our orbital stage. So we're going to focus on that. The payload is done, and that should get us to the moon and back. Well, landed on the moon and back. The transorbital stage will be what gets us over to the moon and into orbit. So this is it. We just built that now, and we're going to grab this big stack decoupler, throw it on, and now we want 2 giant fuel tanks. So this should be enough to get us into orbit. I had no idea before I did this, but now that I have done it, it did get me into orbit perfectly. So we're going to grab the Mammoth engines here, throw those on. If I sound funny, guys, can't breathe out of my nose at all. That's just a common thing for me. Probably have like a deviated septum or some shit, but I'm afraid to go and get fucking shit just shoved right into my nostrils and, you know, cameras and all that shit, and then the surgery and buddy, just can't do it. So we're just screwing around with the symmetry on these fins, but you want to grab the one that I grabbed, and that's only because it has extra control. They have little flaps on them, so that's pretty cool. And here we're just gonna get our like bracket stabilizer things for the launch. And I usually forget to do this, but we're gonna do some RCS on here. And the last thing I think we're gonna do is put some RCS fuel on both the payload and the ascent stage, just so that we have just enough power to maneuver a little bit in space. And I put that one off to the right a little bit, and yeah, I was just trying to do this quick. Sometimes if I can't get 4 on, I'll put the symmetry to 5, and it'll just work better around the ladders and stuff like that. So I've got those on, and that'll help us orient ourselves when we are in space. And now we need the fuel, so we're going to go with some fuel tanks here. It takes me a little bit of a second to figure out where I want to put them, but we're going to throw those on, and then we're going to go for the big fuel tanks here. These are also monopropellant, which is the fuel for the RCS control. So that's about it, guys. We're going to go into the next one. We're just going to adjust these a little bit for center of mass and all that. But we'll see it in the next clip where we launch it. Alright, so we're back and we are ready to launch. So we're just going to bring the staging down. We want the rocket to go off at the same time as those brackets. Then we're going to turn RCS on and SAS, and we're going to put the craft to full throttle. So that's L1 up if you're using cursor settings. And we're going to go into the awesome like spectator mode here and take off. So as you can see, we have this big nav ball, the big blue nav ball, and inside it there is a yellow marker. Now that yellow marker is called a prograde marker. You're really going to want to learn these. That's just prograde and retrograde. Those are the only two you have to worry about right now. And as soon as you take off, you want to do a gravitational turn. Now basically what that is the Earth rotates constantly, and as it's rotating, if you take off with it and you rotate with it, you'll get a more efficient burn. I'm no rocket appliancist or nothing, so don't take my word for it. But basically you want to stay within that prograde marker, and you want to keep bringing it over to about 45 degrees. So where you want to get to is 45 degrees. Right now I think we're at 30, and we're moving to 35, 40, and as you can see, I'm kind of at the back end of that prograde marker. We've also throttled down because we were starting to see a lot of air pressure over the top of the rocket. Now when you see that, that means you're going through the really thick part of the atmosphere, so you want to throttle down until you stop seeing it. We saw a little bit more there. I didn't do this perfectly, but that's the trick, and that's what you want to do. And to avoid flipping out and stuff, you want to stay within that prograde marker. Since we're up at such a high angle, I'm kind of having a hard time keeping it at 45 degrees. It wants to go further, but that's fine. We're just going to hold it there. And we also came out and we pressed square over our maneuver node, or sorry, our apoapsis is what it is. And that gives us our apoapsis and tells us that we're getting up there. So we're going all the way to about 90. That's when this thing's going to cut out. And I built it that way for a reason. Sometimes you get a little more out of it, sometimes you get a little less. Depends on if you did that maneuver right. So that's burnt us right out. We've got an enormous amount of speed. We're hitting like 1700 meters per second. So here we want to make our maneuver node before we get to it. So right away you get into the maneuver node and you want to go prograde with that up. Then you go over to this little thing and you press square on it. And as soon as they flip around, as you can see, they're just flipping around like that. You want to get them kind of even. And then you go take a look. You press square to hold it there. And you take a look at the other one. Oh, I'm going to press square to just keep it there. And I think they're at 93. And I'm trying to get them right on 93 each. Now, you don't have to get this perfect. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll be short and you'll end up, one side's 70, one side's 100 and something. It's really hard to do at first, but you'll get it after a while. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to the maneuver node. So that's the maneuver node. So that's your SAS control. It does it on its own. If you go over to that little node and you press it, it'll move to where it needs to move. So did a little cinematic thing here, but what it's doing is it's going to that blue marker and it's going to sit on it. That's why the RCS comes in handy, because we needed to move such a big craft. Now we're going to let go of this whole section and it's going to drop down and blow up before it hits the atmosphere. Or sorry, when it hits the atmosphere, it's going to blow up and probably disintegrate. But that's what's going to happen to the back part. So there was something wrong with the counter here, and it said 37 minutes for our burn. And the burn's only going to be about 30 seconds to get into orbit. So I had to do that in my head. So what you want to do is, if the burn's 30 seconds, you want to burn in 15. If the burn's 10 seconds, you want to burn at 5. I screwed up a little bit here by going a little past that. But I wanted to essentially get it around 15. So you're going to see 15 go by here, and we're going to hit it right now. Or soon. Pretty soon. Okay. Like I said, I was a little late on that, and that's why we are not perfect here. So what you're going to see is we're going to go through this burn. Like I said, it's about a 30-second burn, and sometimes it won't calculate it. So you're going to need to know about how much you're going to have to burn to do it, which is not easy. And I don't know the math or anything. Sometimes I just wing it. But alright, so the other trick that I have for you guys is you're going to want to cut it off right when you get near the end and just give it a little bit of gas, like the tiniest little bit, just to get that down to 1 or 0 or 0.1. And we're going to stop right there at 0.1, and we're going to get rid of the maneuver node. And right here, I'm going to go back into the map view and we'll show you the orbit that we've got. So that is a good orbit. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we ended up with 96 over 100 and something. So it was a little off. I really can't see it. It's too small from here. It was a little off. I know that. So I'm going to show you guys how to correct that. If you ever come up and you're off, if you're off by too much and you need to make a correction right away, just hit prograde. It'll screw up the other side a little bit, but just hit prograde and give it some gas, and you'll most likely get yourself up in altitude. So that's basically what you want to do. It's a little more complicated than that, but right here what we're doing is adding maneuver node, and we're just gently fixing it. And I think what we stuck with was 93.5, 93.5. So it was right on now. So what we're going to do is we're going to warp around to the other side. So that'll take us a second here. So now we're going to our periapsis. So we're just passing the apoapsis now. Or maybe we're heading to the apoapsis. I think we're heading to the apoapsis. Alright, so we're going to make our burn right on our maneuver node here. And this is just the slightest, gentlest burn again. You don't want to go full throttle for this because you'll way overdo it. This is like little minute adjustments. So we're going to do that here. We're just speeding up time so that we get closer to our maneuver node burn time. So I think we have like T-minus 6 seconds here. and we're just going to burn it very slowly. And we can do that right from in this menu. Makes everything work out good. So now if we go to it, it's 93 and 93. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm actually guessing this 93. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I can't see it. I'm looking at like a tiny screen right now. So that's pretty much it, guys. We have orbited, and that's how you do it. Well, that's how I do it. Hopefully, if you guys have any suggestions for me, let me know in the comments. And again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time here on 420 Gaming. Later, guys.